Here we are again. I want to welcome my third Navy SEAL I've spoken to, but the great Jimmy Hatch in character right now as we speak. So, Jimmy, welcome. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me, man.
You look good. Is it all right if I call you Jimmy? I know your professional
Yeah,
name is James.
Jimmy's good. Thank you. That
James is
works.
a James is a good strong name. That's my middle name, so I respect it.
There you go.
Well, I appreciate you coming on here. Anyone that listens or watches this knows that I'm a big fanboy of military guys, especially SEALs. I grew up watching, reading books on all different kind of Navy SEALs and what they do. And so, could you just maybe talk a little bit about how you got in, how long you were in, whatever you feel is necessary just to let us know a little bit about your service in the Navy, and then we'll obviously branch off into whatever we want.
Yeah, so I started out just kind of doing the regular Navy thing, but I grew up reading books about Vietnam, Korean War, World War II. And then I decided, hey, I'm going to go to Buds, and I went, and I didn't do well. I decided to leave voluntarily, so I quit. I remember, man, when I got there, there was a guy in my class, and he had done the Ironman, and he had finished in like the top 20.
Jeez.
And this dude was an animal. So we start Hell Week, and this dude gets up and he quits, and I'm like, if that dude can't make it, there's no way I can make it. And there were like 8 of us, and we all quit. An hour later, you're like, what did I do? So fast forward, I had to go to the regular Navy and develop some character, you know what I mean? So I worked on a ship, which was good. It was cool, man. I had a good time, and I learned a lot. But I wanted to get back, to try out again, and I did. And I was pretty fortunate. I got through it, but I wasn't exactly the top performer. You know what I mean?
That doesn't matter, man.
Cool.
You finish. That's all that matters. Just like it's like doing the triathlon or doing the Ironman. You finish. No one, obviously if you win, great. But you're Navy SEAL, man. If you pass Buds, you pass it. That's it.
Yeah, it was cool. And then I got to the SEAL teams, and I went to SEAL Team 8 first, and then, later on down the line, I went other places. But I remember thinking, oh man, I'm so awesome. I made it through Buds. And then I get to SEAL Team 8, and all these dudes are like, whatever, dude. Get to work. Shut up. You're a new meat. You know what I mean? So it was cool. And that was a great thing about the SEAL teams. My whole career, I spent 26 years in the Navy, and it didn't matter really. If you went to work one day and you're like, man, I've got it. I'm the man. You probably need to go find.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're cutting out for a second, man. I might have missed you.
The old guys will square you away quick,
Yeah, sorry, man.
You back?
I missed it for a second. You probably lost me, but yeah, I missed you cutting out for a second. It looks good, but you got a bit choppy on me. There you are. Can you see me?
Yeah, man.
Oh, okay.
It was frozen up for a second.
Yeah. So if you were in the Navy 26 years, how many years of that were you officially a SEAL, I guess?
Probably 22-ish. Yeah, right around that.
Geez,
22 years.
Did you come right out of high school and join the Navy?
Oh, yeah, man. Right away. Yep, it was like that was what I was going to do. I was going to be in the service for sure.
So I give you credit, man, for you saying you went and tried Buds the first time. And I can imagine it made me think like inspiration works both ways. If you know this guy next to you did an Ironman and he quit the first day of Hell Week.
Oh, yeah, like hours into it.
Oh, gosh. Yeah. I can see how
2 hours.
it works both ways. Yeah, like a guy could push you, or a guy like that could be pretty demoralizing, I guess, if you see a dude that's an absolute robot just trudging through everything, and he lets go right away, man.
He was over it.
And then
It was funny.
Was that weird? So say you went back, do people not another obviously when you go back to the ship, is there other guys on the ship that maybe had gone to Buds and didn't make it or got, I know they drop you for injury and different things. Was there other guys like that around there?
You know what? I don't think there was on the ship that I was on. There were guys who wanted to go, and so I think I was the only guy on the ship that had been and then went back. And That was okay. I needed to be hard.
Okay, yeah. Like I've told people, I'm sure, sick of hearing me talk about how much respect I have for guys that have gone through it and become SEALs and gone through buds and whatever. But do you think it does a legit job or a great job of preparing you for what you're gonna see after that? But I don't. At the same time, I asked that question when I cut you off before I let you answer. Even how could you? Is there anything that could ever prepare you for what you will see once you become a Navy SEAL?
Well, I think there are a couple of parts of that question. The first part, I think you need to be good at suffering, right? Because you're going to get in situations that are going to be more difficult than buds. You're going to be more miserable. You're going to be more tired, and there's dudes trying to kill you. So it's not like a safe environment where the doctor's out there and they're keeping the water temperature and how long can they stay in the water. It's like, dudes are going to kill you if you don't have your stuff together. So there's that part of it. And then, there's also, I think it's interesting, having done a lot of combat deployments, I think it's interesting that there are some people that are better at that kind of stuff than others, even though they've been through some of that training. And I think there's just people who like to do that more than others. There's no disrespect there. I just think it's interesting how, it's too easy to generalize. You look at somebody and they got something on their uniform, you don't know what they've really done. You know what I mean? And it's funny. I was a free fall instructor out in Arizona at the Special Warfare Free Fall School, which has all the services: the Marines, the Air Force, the Army, Green Berets, Rangers. And I remember those guys saying, "Yeah, just because I didn't understand what their badges were," and they're like, "Yeah, it doesn't really mean much, So I think that there's a certain amount of, it's good for the public to say, okay, hey, Navy SEAL, graduated from buds, but really, what did you do afterwards? That's kind of the deal for us. You know what I mean? What did you do after that? So those types of things are important. I don't know that anything can prepare you for combat. I think once you get in there, you figure it out.
I would imagine. There's nothing. I would think, regardless of how hard your training is and how scary your instructors make it and everything, hopefully you guys know there's a good chance you're not going to die in training. You're not going to get shot by hopefully live bullets, and there won't be a stray one that catches you. But I'm sure they've had accidents at times. But once that really puts you with the face of reality when your first time you actually face combat. And so say I guess I've heard guys call it what in theater. Is that what you call it when you guys that go to combat?
Yeah.
And whatever. Is that just,
yeah, that works.
So say the first. No disrespect by any of this. Obviously, I don't know anything. I'm just, like I say, I'm the little fanboy reading the books and watching the documentaries. So let's say the first time you do actually get into a firefight or see any kind of combat, was it anything like what you thought when you were a kid or even when you were going through training?
What was really cool about it was that all these old dudes from Vietnam, and when I went through buds, there were a couple of guys that were Vietnam vets. I went through buds in 89. So there were guys who had stayed in for a while, and they were buds instructors. And they were like, listen, man, this training stuff, you guys think it's training, but when stuff goes sideways, this is how you're going to react. You're building habits right now. And for sure, man, when you start moving and having to communicate and making sure your guns are lined up and that kind of stuff, it's just all, at that point, it's habit. So, I think that part of it was interesting to see, hey, man, that stuff was true. I don't think there's anything that can prepare you for, like, people talk about it, it's fluffy, oh yeah, your buddy, but when when people that you know and you love die, that's a big deal, I think, and that's hard to, I don't know how you would prepare for that, you know what I mean? That's tough, and then I think when there are innocent people, and which happens in war quite a bit, when that happens, when that kind of stuff happens, where they get hurt or killed, that's brutal, and I don't think there's anything you can do to prepare for that. The backside of that is expensive, you know what I mean?
There shouldn't, yeah. Luckily, you shouldn't have to see that. You shouldn't have to prepare for something like that to see something so vicious. But that's the world that we're in, I guess. That you guys protect us, and that's what makes us free. And say before you went into the military, I guess you were 17, 18 years old. Did your view change at all on how how there's this whole God bless the USA, I'm an American, country music, whatever political party people want to be a part of. But there's always this, it's driven home to have this hometown pride, and it's true. I mean, I teach my little kids to start USA chants when we're in restaurants, so I don't care. I'm with it. I'm on board. But did that change at all from when you were a young kid to when you got in to when you're out now?
No, man. I think I've always felt like, even as a kid, and I grew up in a fairly, I don't know, cloistered kind of community where I didn't have a lot of exposure just because of the situation that I was in. I didn't have a lot of exposure to different cultures and things of that nature. So the service helped me. But even when I was a kid, I was like, just from what I've read, I think that in the United States, an individual has more opportunity. And the further I went along in my service, I realized the more other countries I got to go to and other cultures I got to see, that's the truth, man. I mean, there's just nowhere else in the world where, think about the president, right? You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what other country in the world could a mixed race guy come up and go to law school and be elected the president? Where does it? I mean, who are these evolved nations that we think about? Well, none of them have anybody even remotely like that. So I just think that kind of stuff is really important. And I think ensuring that stuff stays that way is important, that people have an opportunity. I think that's huge. I think that's really, at the end of the day, that's kind of what I was like. In the United States of America, you can grow up and do whatever you want if you work hard enough. It's that simple.
And you really can, it seems like. And that's what's got to be the thing that sometimes I run into that. It bothers me when I hear people talk about, well, yeah, the land of the free, the home of the brave. But, they say that, but some people aren't. It's true. Obviously, some people are born luckier than others in America. But I tell people, hey, we're born in America. We all won the lottery, man. I heard that from somebody else, and I stole it. I used that because it's true. And I haven't had the other experiences in third world countries and in the trenches fighting like a guy like you has. But I would assume if all of us got a little chance, just to have a tiny little window of what it's like somewhere else, our views would change a little bit, and maybe we wouldn't take things for granted. Did you see that even after maybe your first deployment? Did you start looking at things differently?
Heck yeah, man. I mean, I grew up in a really limited kind of sphere, and to me, it was all just fascinating. But at the end of the day, when I, Hong Kong or, going to Japan and these places, I mean, it's just cool cultures. Senegal, awesome stuff, right? Crazy food, really cool. But at the end of all of that, I was like, we have opportunity. And what's funny is, after I got wounded, I had these ideas about our society and what could go, and I mean, what people really wanted to do and what they didn't want to do, and how patriotic people are. But after I got hurt, man, complete strangers came out of the woodwork to help me out. I mean, from the ladies who make those blankets, every person who gets wounded and flies through Landstuhl in Germany, the hospital staging point before you fly home, mm-hmm. They get a blanket. I call it my whoopee, dude. I still have it. I should go get it and show you. But yeah. These people in Montana made it. I'm laying there in this bed, and the nurse comes in, and she's like, "Hey, man, this is for you." And I'm like, I was kind of out of it. I'm like, "What's?" She's like, "Well, these people made it for you. They want you to be comfortable." I'm like, so I mean, that was just like a little introduction to what I saw after. Like, it's pretty cool, man. You would be surprised, and none of those people would want any recognition. You know what I mean? I remember even in the hospital, there were these dudes that were walking around. They would go. There was one floor in the hospital. Jay Redmond was there. A couple other guys were there. And there were these Vietnam veteran dudes, and they were walking around, and they were talking like, "Hey, how are you?" And as I got to my wits about me, I could kind of talk back with them. And I remember saying, "Hey, what are you guys doing?" And they're like, "Oh, we're veterans." I'm like, "From what?" And they're like, "Oh, Vietnam." And I'm like, "Man, you guys didn't get treated very well when you came home." And they're like, "And that's why we're here, dude. We're here to make sure that doesn't happen to you." And I was like, you know what I mean? Like, people like that. And it was just constant. The hits just kept coming over and over and over. I guess sometimes it's easy to be cynical, but if I just sit down for a second, take a breath, and go, "Where have you been, bro?" And I can't. I can't. I can turn on the news and listen to people rant and rave, but we have it good, man, for sure.
We do, and I love that what you're talking about. Those Navy, they're the Vietnam guys. Like, yeah, they don't have to be there, and they could easily be crazy bitter towards the U.S., towards the military, and you guys weren't here for us when we got home. Because the more you look into it, it was crazy, man. Thinking about, I wasn't around when it was happening, but when those guys were coming back, it was like they were outcasts, and people are telling them they're killing babies and doing bad. I'm like, regardless, these guys signed up for something and they weren't in charge. They were just following orders, whatever was happening. And it's like, how can you sit there and just turn your back on them? So I think it's cool. That's like, those are like some progressive dudes that are want humanity to be better, because that's something where, so you got wounded. Would you say, can you take us a little bit through, or what happened? I know you said, I've read distal femur. Is that right? You took an AK-47 round?
Yeah. So I was actually on a mission to get a kid. He's been in the news lately. His name's Bergdahl.
Oh yeah.
And he was captured. But the information that I had before we went on the mission was that he'd actually walked off his base, and he went into town, was asking people if they spoke English, and then his Taliban crew came in and rolled him up. So we went to try to get him, and I was kind of pissed at that dude, but I also didn't want his mother to have to see, bad video of bad things happen to him. You know what I mean? So anyway, we went out on that. It was kind of a quick, like, hey, you guys need to go get this dude right now because of the way things are, the circumstances. And it was pretty rough, man. I'm surprised that there was only one person even hurt, and we lost a dog too. The dog took the first 2 rounds, and I took the next one. The dog saved my life for sure. But then at that point, I became a kind of a bystander, for watching my buddies, dude, hanging it out. I mean, it was a flat field, and these dudes were shooting. It was crazy. I heard dudes having to shoot guys to get to me, to stop the bleeding, and it was incredible. Then the helicopters that took us in there, that took fire, taking us in there, they came back in to get me. They landed that freaking school bus, 30 meters from me, so I could hop my fat ass over with a buddy helping me and get on there. And they took me to the hospital. I got to that hospital. There's people standing there. It's a tent. There's people standing there with scissors. They cut all my stuff off. Then they put me on this steel table, and I tell my buddy who went with me, I begged him to go with me because I didn't know anybody on the helo. I'm like, don't laugh at my junk. It's cold in here. Then they put the mask on me, and that's the last thing I remember. But then those dudes went back and got back on the helicopter and went back into that fight. It was mean, man.
They went back in?
Yep.
Man.
They sure did. Yeah.
Ooh, see, it seems like I know we've emailed back and forth a little bit about it, and you've had so many people that have done great things for you, and obviously I think there's a big reason for things like that happening is because I don't know you, but I'm sure you've lived well. You've taken care of other guys as well, and I think that obviously promotes good things coming back to you. So you definitely can't call you lucky or anything, taking a round to right above your knee, I guess. But for those guys to shoot and come, like, say they're coming for you, I don't even know how. My brain can't even I can't wrap my brain around that thing. Like you said, a flat field too. And you guys are going to get a guy that you're not really sure about. This Bergdahl dude.
We knew he was an American, and that's enough. You know what I'm saying? Okay. And you know what, man? I'll do it again today.
Yeah.
Knowing what I know, I'll do it again today.
Well, that's very honorable of you. That's why I'm glad we got guys like you helping us out, because I don't know how I would have felt. I don't. But with that, and this was obviously before all of us, old John Q. Public, even knew much about Bergdahl or knew anything about him, probably.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it was pretty. I didn't know. I was overseas, so I didn't really know what the news reports were about him. I didn't know how much information had been out, but I did know that he friggin' walked off. And I'm interested to see what happens. Like, I can't help it. I get on, I get on the Google machine and look for news about him, and people are speculating that there's things going on with this investigation, and they're going to wait until after the elections. And, I don't know what that is. I think it's, since he's been back in the United States, it's been a while, and I think they're doing the right thing by giving him, the opportunity to talk about what he went through in order to decide what the next move is with him. And I think that's good. You know, he gets his day in court, so to speak. But if he did walk off that base, man, a lot of dudes risked their life trying to get that kid. And according to some of the people that were with him, dudes died. You know, I wasn't there with his crew. I never was even at the little base that he was at. But if that's true, man, that kid, you know, he needs to pay the man.
Yeah, I don't know how any human could live with that, knowing if he did desert his guys and leave, and not only are you guys coming after him, if he walked off and whatever happened, and we sent guys like you to go get him, and none of you got injured, none of you got wounded, nothing happened, and you pulled him off, I still don't know how he would live with himself thinking, wow, all this for me, you know, little old me, you guys are sending these choppers and all this stuff. But I don't know how I feel about that whole deal. I mean, I'm like anyone else watching and seeing reading the little bits and pieces I have, and so I don't know. It just what is crazy to me, and tell me if I'm wrong, but how do we trade like 5 dudes for him, 5 Al Qaeda guys or something? Is that true?
Yeah. So a guy I worked for, he was my boss for a number of years. In fact, he was my boss the night I got hurt, and he used to say, you know, we'd ask him questions like, what are those dudes thinking? Like, what are those people, the administration, whoever, the Bush administration, the Obama, you know, the Secretary of State, what are they thinking? And he was like, listen, man, those people, they operate at a place called echelons above reason. Like, they're insulated from the reality that we know. So, yeah, I don't know. I wasn't in those rooms when those choices were made. You know, I don't know what the thinking was, you know, behind it. But I think, you know, it's interesting. I think it was messed up how it went down, plain and simple. And here's why. So Jay Redmond, whom you've interviewed, he does a lot of fundraising for his charity. And I'd like to talk more about my personal experiences with Jay in a minute. But one of the things he does is called Jumping for a Purpose. And I'm a big skydiver. I love it. I take a lot of pictures. And so I go out there and I take pictures. And I got wounded, so I can jump for free, which is cool because it's like $25 a jump. So that's expensive. Mm-hmm. And I take pictures of these guys, and I'm taking pictures of dudes who have been blown in half. Like, they have no legs, and they're skydiving. And we're like, yeah, man, I don't feel like I have any wounds up there in the sky because, you know, you're just like everybody else. You're just flying around. So for a minute of free fall and then a couple minutes under the parachute, you're like, wow, this is cool. Well, that day, it was Memorial Day weekend. That day was the day that Bergdahl's release was announced. And I went home, and I was watching the news, and there's the president with his arms around, you know, Bergdahl's parents. And I'm like, dude, none of those guys that I was taking pictures of today got to go to the White House. I sure didn't go to the White House. You know, what's this all about? And I think it was just a kind of a public thing that which probably shouldn't have taken place because that dude, at least they know it's questionable what he was doing. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know. I have a heartburn with it because I was personally affected by it. And the dudes that I was with that day at Jay Redmond's event, they were as well. A lot of those kids were Army kids, and they were like, yeah, I remember when that happened, and, you know, it was a bad deal, and I heard he was crazy and all these things, you know, the rumors, but that dude's parents got to go to the White House, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, and I'm talking with dudes who've been mad, you know? No, you're
justified 100%, and his dad, like, has made weird comments that make it sound like, I wish I had him on me right now, but his dad made some weird comments, almost like he wasn't even grateful, or like, I don't know. It was weird, man. I don't know if you've seen anything on it, and more, everything will come out eventually. I'm hoping, but it's like, I don't know, man. The whole situation rubbed me the wrong way, just because I think it's awkward and it's weird. And then when you're telling me that these guys get to go to the White House, and you have all these wounded guys you guys are legit heroes, and you don't get to go, and these guys have a moment on TV on Memorial Day. I mean, that's almost like it's a movie. That's like
right.
That's like Homeland or whatever. I don't know if you watch Homeland or not. That's like that, something like that movie, that show happening. And now, come full circle, you make me feel really terrible because I actually had to go I was privileged to go to the White House after we won the Super Bowl. Now, man, awesome. I want to take it back. I want to take my trip back. How do I strike that?
No, man. It's just symbology, right? Like, it's like you winning the Super Bowl, and no offense to anybody, but like the Raiders get to go to the White House. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Hey, man. You never know. What you never know what could happen. But yeah, you're right. Because what clicks in my mind when you say that, I didn't even know his parents were at the White House with Obama's arms around him. That's just weird. But what I think of then is those 5 high profile Al Qaeda guys back in Afghanistan or wherever they're living with their cheering and shooting their AKs in the air. That's what I think of when I think of that. Like, hey, we got this dude. We don't know anything. Whoever this guy is that they obviously didn't care about, and we trade all these dudes for like 5 guys. I don't know, man. Now it's really starting to bug me now that I've got into it with you a little bit, man. And boom, look at your leg. I can't, and I don't even have I don't have to live with your leg too. So, props to you, man, for handling it the way you do. That's why you guys are. You guys are cut from a different cloth because no one else could have that view. I think, especially with what you've been through on that.
Yeah, I've got to tell you, there was one thing that I had a seriously hard time with, and you'll appreciate this. I think there was a time a few years after Bergdahl had been captured, where his dad went to Washington, and all these dudes on their Harleys and their POW MIA flags, and his dad got up, and I remember seeing a speech. He was talking about nothing's been done for my son. There's been no attempts to rescue him, and I'm like, of course I'm not going to talk about that.
Yeah.
Then because if and about it, what I mean. That was kind of a bummer. You know what I'm saying?
It's got to be, and even if his dad had any common sense, you would think that saying for him to stand up and say nothing's been done for him, and he doesn't know what's going on behind the scenes. Like we're going to sit there and broadcast. And we, as in the U.S. and the government, like they're going to broadcast that we're sending guys in. We supposedly, I'm sure. Who knows what you are and aren't allowed to talk to? But supposedly, we tried to rescue him multiple times before we finally let him go and released the Al Qaeda guys. So, I don't know, man. Whatever. That's just how now it's affected every aspect of you too. This sucks.
Yeah.
I can't stand it.
Well, in all fairness to his dad, man, that's his kid. He probably didn't want to believe that my kid deserted. He probably didn't want to believe that. He was emotional. It's his kid, So I can see why he would do it. You know what I mean? But it was just something you have to bite your tongue. Hey, man, it's all work itself out. Hopefully it does, the right way. Hopefully they've done a good investigation and figure out what the kid did, and he has to, pay the bill on it.
Yeah.
But the coolest part is that night we were close to that kid, I'm sure of it, and we killed a lot of dudes who had it coming. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
that was good.
So you guys, and every time that happens, you guys save some of your buddies' lives too, I'm sure, and save maybe some innocent Americans' lives that are not even military people. So yeah, there's always some good that comes from that. Sorry that you had to take a round to your distal femur. I'm just trying to be real technical with your injury.
Yeah,
but how does that?
It blew my femur right out the back of my it was unbelievable, man. I was running at this dude. I was, shooting at him. He just shot the dog. I was shooting at him, and then his buddy panics. Whenever I hear these Taliban these tough Taliban fighters, I'm like, no. He just panics and starts spraying, and I'm like, now. I'm sitting here right now, I'm going, why couldn't that dude have hit me in all that damn body armor I had to wear? You know what I mean? Like, I was wearing that. It would have helped me out. But he hits me in the leg. It hit me right above my knee and my femur. I remember I was just stepping down on my right foot, and it kind of gave out on me. And, something you've relied on your whole life is just gone, and that's surprising. And then the force hits you, and it started to pick me up and flip me over. Ooh. And I'm in the air in it's slow motion, and I'm like, don't scream, because I was 30 meters from these dudes. Don't scream, don't scream, don't scream. I hit the ground. I was screaming. I couldn't stop. It was brutal. A complete sissy. I wasn't nearly as tough as I'd want to be in that situation, man. It was kind of funny now looking back on it, But one of the guys who saved my life is a funny guy. He had to shoot his way to get to me. He'd done some work with the Marines in Fallujah, and he was teasing me recently. He's like, Jimmy, I've worked on 19-year-old Lance Corporals that have been shot that were not as big of a sissy as you, It's just funny, man.
Yeah, it's like any guys, I think, when they get together, whether they're businessmen, military, sports, whatever it is, whatever those crazy moments you go through, when you can, you're close, when you can look back on it and then basically just kind of, make fun of each other for it. And that's the one thing, like, girls don't get that. They don't understand that, because we'll be doing that. I have 2 older brothers. I'm on a team of 60 football players, and all we do is mess with each other and just make fun of each other. And when they has nothing, no relation really to what you did compared to what happens to you. But if a guy's hurt, and we've had a guy that got hurt, one of our good friends got hurt and was laying down like it was a career ender last year on the field, and he's telling our trainer, he said, "Oh, don't." What did he say? "I can't let my mama see me like this. I can't let my mama see me." He said, he said, "Nate," he was talking to our trainer, "Nate, how the fans handling it? How the fans handle my injury? Like they cared. Like, it was awesome." And so that's all we still like recite lines from when he was down. And guess what? I think he played the next week. He was fine.
Right. That's even funnier.
It's one of those things like that where you guys you're close and you've been through craziness like that. And so if you say they injure you there, or you get shot there, you take that round, like you said, you had guys, unbelievable help around you. I went through when Jay basically got shot in Redmond through like the back of his jaw, and it basically blew half his face off. He was saying like he knew, he was like, they told him like 5 or 10 more minutes, and if the medevac wasn't there, then he wasn't gonna make it. And I know in his mind he said he was preparing, like, man. And I asked him what was crazy to me, and I asked him, what was it? I was like, were you thinking of your family? What were you thinking of? What pulled you through? Or what were you like? Did your whole life flash before your eyes? What he said, you know what? And I love him, I respect him for it. He said, "I was pissed that I let these guys get me. That I let these guys. I'm gonna die in this dirt field in Afghanistan." I think wherever it was. And he's like, and I was like, man, you guys are crazy. You guys are warriors. But was that how quickly did they get you out of there? Because like you said, it was a very flat, tough place to fight a firefight. How quickly before the medevac came in there and got you?
I just remember somebody later told me from the time I started screaming on my radio, let everybody who would listen, till the time I got to that hospital was 28 minutes.
Jeez.
Seemed like 3 days.
Yeah.
I was screaming. It was funny. They're like, "Jimmy, you got to shut up. There's still dudes out here shooting at us." I'm like, "You can't talk to me like that. I've been shot." It was hilarious now looking back on it. But think about it, man. I mean, this is something that's really, like, I wish I could somehow paint a picture, or with all of the emotions and emotions involved in this. Like, it's dark, right? And we're in a field with dudes shooting at us and throwing grenades. And these dudes run up because they hear me screaming on the radio, and they know these 2 guys that showed up are both kind of advanced medics. And they show up, and they have what they have on their bodies, right? Like, we carry what, and they go to work on me, man. And they jammed stuff into that wound and stopped the bleeding. I mean, I would have probably bled to death right there. I took 14 units of blood at that hospital. That's a lot. And just think about that. Like, it's dark. Dudes are shooting at you. You're in a flat field. There's not really anything to hide behind. And they're both going to work with no light, jamming stuff into my leg to try to get the bleeding to stop, feeling it, looking at their hands. I mean, it was crazy, man. It was crazy. I mean, seriously. Just think about that for a minute. Like, that's your job, right?
No, you guys aren't human. You're not even human, I don't think. And that's when we try to wrap our heads around it, we can't. And I don't think we should. It's like we shouldn't be able to wrap our heads around how, in that time of just what you just said, all of that, us that haven't had anything remotely, even we haven't dreamt or had a nightmare or anything near like that, we can't even think about that. I don't think it could even enter our brain what it really would feel like. So I give more credit to you guys, even the more you think about it. But a guy like that, so these medics run up and they're on you. What was your first thought when they got to you? Do they have? Is it like Saving Private Ryan when they have the little like morphine jabs and they jab you a few times? "Oh, give me more, doc." Is it like that?
So funny you say that morphine stuff, right? So initially, we had to, not we, because I was laying there screaming. But the other guys that were not laying there screaming had to finish that gunfight. And then once they got things settled down and made sure that the area was fairly clear, they started to go to work on me. But they weren't advanced medics. One guy was kind of keeping an eye out, and the other guys started to do some work on me. But those other two guys, they didn't even talk to each other. They're like, I need to get to him. And they came from different directions. And I think, when you think about the amount of, like, you can't train for that. You don't have a training scenario where you're like, hey, your buddy's laying there in the field and you got to run and you got to fight some people to get there, and then what are you going to do in the dark? And there's just no, I don't know. It's just hard to equate it. I think it's just a natural, you either have it or you don't. And those guys sure had
it. They definitely did. Oh yeah, you guys have to have it to. I'm sure a big reason guys like you are around still is because those guys have that fight or flight thing, and all you guys know is fight. There's no turning around. And on the flip side, there, I don't know if you would ever admit it or because you're too good of a guy, but have you ever seen any like flight? Like you've gotten into theater, as I said so corny earlier, and seen guys just take kid in hand and say, I'm out of here, when the first bullet went flying.
Yeah, I never have really personally seen that, but I know it's happened, and you can't, like, what are you going to say to a guy? You know what I mean? It's like somebody getting dressed to go out and play, and they're like, yeah, I'm not doing it. You know what I mean? Like, they're on the field, like, it's got to be hard for them. You know what I mean? I feel, I got banged up and I saw horrible stuff, but I also got to see things on a level, like people working together, and I feel bad for those guys that they didn't get to see that. Some people just aren't cut out for it. Not that that makes them a bad person. You know what I mean? But I just don't think that everybody's cut.
We're definitely
out to do that kind of stuff.
No, we're definitely not all.
and I think in the long run, it's a good thing. I don't think there should be many people who really dig it the way I do, or my buddies. You know what I mean?
Do you still have similar views on, I don't know, like, I guess your overall experience there, and say your overall, I know you can't get into everything everywhere you've been, but do you still have similar views on the military in general and what we're doing as a country to try to stay safe ourselves, or do you think we're trying to get ourselves involved in too many areas and spread ourselves too thin, or what?
Yeah, man, I can only speak from my personal perspective and my experiences, and I don't get to sit in the briefings. I don't even know anything anymore. I've been retired for over 3 years, but based on my experience, I think launching cruise missiles and bombs on people is going to create, because they don't discriminate. You know what I mean? Like, and those dudes are smart. Those guys in Iraq, the ISIS guys, they're using American stuff that we left there for the Iraqi army that they stole or whatever, So they're smart and they know the deal. They're going to put themselves close in with the civilian population. And, unless they're doing overt stuff out driving around with trucks with machine guns on them and stuff like that, those are easy targets. But, they say, no boots on the ground. I don't know how you're going to not create more hate and anger if you bomb people and kill innocent people. It's kind of like, what would you think if somebody did that to your family? You'd be like, hey, I am now obligated to punish those people that did it. So I struggle with that a little bit, and I don't know what the long-term plan will be with that. But I also think that conversely, I think that when we go to these countries and we build these enormous bases and create all this, like, it's almost like another country within a country, the way that the Westerners live in places like Afghanistan and Iraq. You can get a latte, you can get a pizza, you know what I mean? It's just crazy. Like, it's insane. I think that's a bad call. I think it's a lot of money that we spend, and I think, simple for me, man, I'm kind of, maybe it's harsh, but if we're going to punish people, then we need to go punish them, and that needs to be the focus. Or we just stay out of it. You know what I mean? And trying to nation build and spend all this money and give people money and try to help them, I don't know that that's a good policy, man. I don't see how that's really helped us out in Iraq, and I don't think it's really going to help us out in Afghanistan. You know what I mean? That's just my own personal opinion. I think we spent a lot of money, a lot of blood in those places trying to nation build. I don't know if that's the right thing to do, man. If we want to punish people, there's plenty of fellows that are ready to go do that. You know what I mean? And we should. If people want to do us harm, we should punish them. But I don't know about this, and it's probably because I'm limited educationally, and I'm still operating below the line of reason. I just don't know that there's a big future in trying to make other people like us. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's what I always wonder, and is like we talk about, and as a disclaimer, I say this completely as an idiot that doesn't know what I'm talking about, just as my stupid opinion, but and talking to just different people throughout, usually military guys, I like to ask them stuff like that, and I'm like, and you watch things and you talk to them and they're saying like, why are we go over there and we try to build all this stuff up and build these power plants and give them planes to fly. And then anyone that's seen the thing on, I don't know if you've seen Vice on there's an HBO show and they have a website forever. They go over and they're talking about in Afghanistan, we have these huge like power plants we're building and they can't even run them because Al-Qaeda, it costs too much money to put the diesel in them, and Al-Qaeda is still like going door to door collecting money from the people, and they're like, it doesn't. They're just saying how, and they have all these planes we give them, and they have like 3 pilots to fly 45 planes, and the planes aren't even maintained. And they were saying like, hey, and they interview all these people, these locals, and they're like, the second you guys leave, it's going right back. Al-Qaeda is going to take over everything. Like they act like they can't stand on their own, and we try to do all this stuff and put all these people there and support them. Like you said, it's crazy. You're saying lattes and pizzas and stuff, and then the second we leave, in my mind, doesn't it seem like, I don't know, you've been there, but wouldn't they just, what would ever keep the bad guys from coming back in and just taking everything right back over?
Yeah, you know what, man?
You can't kill all of them.
Right, exactly. And more importantly, you can't kill an idea. You know what I mean? Like, if you think it's right to shoot a little girl because she's going to school in the face,
you can't reason with that.
Your buddies, but there's still more people. Yeah, like I don't know the answer to that, man. It's a complicated thing. And those, how much time and money and blood are we going to spend? I don't know. Maybe I'm a bit of an isolationist. I don't know, man. It's hard. Like I agree with the idea that we got to be careful who we give guns and arms to, because 10 years later, your kids might be fighting them. You know what I mean? Like it's a big deal, like I saw in the news tonight, they dropped some pallets of weapons for a town that's being assaulted near the Turkish border, and the ISIS guys grabbed the pallets and they're like, oh yeah, grenades and guns, and we got this stuff. So, you know what I mean? Like that kind of stuff is problematic. That's a big deal. I don't know what the answer is.
Yeah, I don't either. I don't pretend like it's ever going to be an easy answer, or there ever is a black and white answer. I know that's probably never, whatever. Those guys that they get to see everything and sit in the boardrooms and analyze it, whatever. Good for them. But, and the thing that I tried to talk about, the more I look at it, I'm thinking, I don't think we, as Americans that have been here our whole life, can understand what it's like. And I would like to get your opinion on people that truly, truly hate us. And hate us, I mean like America. And they have this like drilled into their head from a young age, and especially when they're using religion behind it, that like your goal is like Americans, devil, like they're trying to kill us. And that, is it as bad as it seems? And are we as Americans not really aware of how bad it really is towards us?
Yeah, in my experience, I don't think it is. I don't think it is a big group of people that feel that way. I think there are some significant players in different cultures who feel that way, and they can manipulate the population through fear, generally, and through intimidation. If fear doesn't work, meaning be afraid of them or be afraid of me, that kind of thing. I think, generally speaking, most people just want to have a place to live, and they want their kids to be educated, and they want to have something to eat, and they want to have a party every once in a while. They're mostly just like you and me. That's, in my heart, I believe that. But there are definitely people out there who want to do serious harm, and those people need to be punished. There's just no two ways around it. I don't think there's many of them. Speaking, the world population, I think there's enough to be concerned with for sure, because it doesn't take much to cause a lot of damage.
No, I mean, look at this whole ISIS deal. They're posting videos beheading guys. A British guy, American guy so far. I don't know, probably more to come. But it's like it's a couple guys, yeah. But it's so powerful, the images and what they have. And I haven't sat there and watched the videos. I've just seen the stills, and for just to think that they're one, the whole picture everyone's seen of the guy in the black robe with just his eyes showing, and he has like, looks almost like a butter knife, and you just to think that a human is doing that, and I don't know, that's scary, and it has a huge impact on us as Americans because it starts to hit home when they're I think one of the guys already was an American, the other was a British, like guys that were captured. But is that I've also got into listen to some people try to tell me, oh, those videos are doctored, they're not real. Like, do you think there's ever a possibility that those videos wouldn't be real?
Yeah, I think they're real for sure, and I think it's time to make a point about those dudes. And I felt this way, and the people that I've worked with over the years who've experienced combat in those areas where that's a cool thing to do. It is not hard to kill people. I mean, give me a 10-year-old girl, I'll take her out of her 5th grade class. She could have glitter on her face. I could take an hour with her with an AK-47, and she could cause some major damage. It's not a difficult thing. Taking a guy who's got his hands tied behind his back and his legs tied up and taking a knife and sawing off his head, it's not a hard thing to do. It sucks, it's crazy, and it's ugly. I wish Americans wouldn't be so, I don't know. I mean, it's good to be upset and pissed off about that kind of stuff because it's wrong, but I wish it wouldn't be as potent. I wish Americans would say, look at what those thugs are doing. They're thugs. They're just thugs. And to let them like have this great aura of power or whatever it is that people think they have, it's really unfortunate because they're just punks, man. They really are. And I'm telling you, I've seen those guys face to face, and they're real tough guys when they got people with their hands tied and they're cutting their heads off. But when you catch them, they throw their kids in front of them. They throw their wives in front of them. They blow up kids. They do. They're nothing to be intimidated by. They suck. and we shouldn't give them the power that, they're not. They're just punks, man. Don't get me wrong. There's some smart guys who believe that they need to punish the West, in America in particular. There's some smart guys that believe in their cause wholeheartedly, but they're not the dudes that are sawing off people's heads. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and it's like when you name something, when you give something a name, it's like it has this thing, like this aura, there's something to it. I feel like, like this, everyone knows, everyone just heard like the tagline, ISIS, regardless if you know whatever it stands, I don't even want to give them enough credit to remember what it stands for, but it's like, you're right, just these few images that we have, they give them this thing, and like I've read stuff about these people, like, people are going over on their own, these rogue Americans or rogue British people going over like, I've had enough of ISIS, I'm going to fight them, and they act like they're going over, they're going to do something. And so you're right, it's like you give them all this power, and that's what they want. Then we're talking about them now, great, but don't worry, they're not going to watch this podcast. But this thing is, I don't know what the answer is, but the one thing I 100% agree with you is that they need to be punished. I think they need to be. We need to like set the tone though. We need to like, you can't just like, I don't know how to do it. I don't know what it is, but we need to make an example of somebody, and if these guys that think like, no, you can't mess with people like this. You can't do this. Like, we're not going to be pushed around, whatever. We all saw the World Trade Center and everything. And it's like just little things like this, they're not little obviously, but they just keep popping up. And it's like people all over other countries got to think that I don't know what they view the U.S. as, the really, really bad guys. But don't you think these ISIS guys, whoever they are, these cowards, are sitting here watching our CNN and our Fox News, and they're saying, look at, I'm on it again, don't you think they're just licking their chops and loving it?
Totally, man. I mean, I think if they can impact the American culture to change it, I mean, do you remember a time when you go to the airport and didn't have to take off your shoes. You know what I'm saying? Like,
I'm old enough for that, Jimmy. A lot of guys I play with are not. But
it's there's a reason that they have a good media machine. You know what I'm saying? They are definitely adept at trying to influence, public opinion, and particularly in two areas. One, they want Americans to be afraid of them and intimidated by them. And two, they want young people who are disenfranchised, whether they're in the United States or in Syria, they want them to come and fight with them because they see it as a great cause. So there's recruiting on one part, and then there's like, we're trying to make people scared of them. It gives them a lot of power that they don't fucking deserve.
No.
Sorry.
I told you in an email, this is the internet, man. Whatever you want. There's no rules here. There's no boss. Todd, you've talked to Todd. He's the only other guy involved in this thing, and he runs the website, but he loves it. That's what pisses me off about it is, so I've always said the greatest compliment you can give somebody is letting them know that you know who they are. And I say that, I've said this before, I don't know if I've said it on the podcast, but one of my favorite things that's happened on the field that made me realize, like, oh, this guy can really get to somebody. I was going to try to make it short. I was in a game, guy got tackled by one of our players, a safety, and it was a quarterback. We came up, we tackled the quarterback, and the safety we had started talking to the quarterback, whatever, I don't even know what he said, trying to like just talk to him, and I was just sitting there kind of laughing, and the quarterback looks at me, he's like, AJ, who's this guy? I didn't even see him on the depth chart. Like, he didn't know who he was, and this dude, the safety I was with, was like, he was speechless, he was stunned, and I was like, man, that was a good one. I was like, that was like, what? There's nothing, I've never been around where a guy didn't have a comeback, and he couldn't say anything. I was like, man, that really hurt. That like made him sad. It really did. So I think I use that for everything, and I was like, these people would love to know whether anybody, just any regular life, there's someone in your life that is a piece of garbage, you don't like him, and you're sitting there and you're talking about him with your buddies or your wife or anyone, saying, oh man, how about this guy, what a punk, and such an ego arrogant dude or whatever, and like, they would be so happy if they knew we were talking about him right now. So I think that's almost what we're doing. We're glorifying this whole stupid thing with these guys. And is that, you said these dudes you've seen, it's not surprising that they would throw their kids in front of them, throw their wives, which is just absurd to even think that there's a human capable of doing something like that. I would think we're born in our DNA that no matter what, no matter how big of a coward you are, the number one thing you would at least do is protect your family. And is that something you think those guys are turned on to early, that like, hey, they're looking out for number one? Is that all they care about, is themselves first and their stupid fake cause at the same time, or what?
You know what? I'll tell you. Just this will sum it up, man. One night, we, our job was to go out and capture or kill, people, high-ranking people, and we went to this guy's house, and he did, he tried to put his wife and kids between him and us, mm-hmm. And we captured him, and we have an interpreter with us, and I think one of the guys talking to him said, hey, ask him why he put his family in danger. And the guy, in perfect English, he said, I will never let my family get in the way of the jihad.
Oh.
So what do you say to that, man? Like, I don't, I'm just like, what do you say? What do you say to that? I don't know what to say to that. That's commitment, I guess, on one hand. On the other hand, it's just depravity. You know what I mean? It's not human. I'm with you.
Yeah, it isn't human. That's the thing, and that's, you can't reason with that guy. You're not going to sit there and You're not going to sit there and lock that guy in jail for 20 years and say, okay, now are you going to protect your family now? Are you going to have you changed? Do you not? Right. And so it's not human. When someone's like that, yeah, they're not human to me. So I don't who knows what any answers are or anything, but I think it is good if we don't glorify them, don't make them more than they are, and stop showing them on TV, man. It's like the school shooters and stuff. Like, why you're making these dudes wanna, like, you're giving them this weird, like, I don't know, like these mythical figure type things when you keep glorifying what they're doing, mass murder, whatever it is. And it's like these, with the new generation and social media and stuff, it's like, it's weird, man. You don't know what kids and people are going to think. They think that that's cool, even if they're dead, that these guys, I was this shooter or whatever. It's just, I don't know. I don't know. What do you think the answer is there, Jimmy?
I think it's definitely a cultural phenomenon. I mean, I think and I believe in the end it promotes the next kid who's kind of teetering on going crazy and shooting kids at school. He's like, oh, the notoriety, because really that's kind of what they want at the end of the day, is they want their name, infamy and all,
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know that we should do it. We should give it to them. But as long as there's a market, you know what I mean? As long as there are people who are going to tune into the nightly news when the headline is the shooter from, the movie theater or,
Yep.
Any of those people, I think.
They give them names too. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard of. The Batman shooter or whatever at the.
Yeah.
And then whoever, like what? Come on, man! Like we're gonna give this dude names, like, whatever.
Yeah. No, I think just it's the same thing with. Look, and I don't think that there's a whole lot of difference between. Well, there is. The ISIS people are way more organized.
Mm-hmm.
But they still suck, like people who shoot innocent people anywhere else, And the same thing, like I think the people who run ISIS are really happy that there's, elementary school children in the United States that are fearful of this group, and they don't even know, you know what I mean? I think that makes them happy. I think as a culture we need to say, hey, man, we don't need to give that stuff the time of day anymore. But fear's powerful, man.
Very, very powerful. It really is, but I'll transition a little bit out of some of the darker stuff. I'm sorry I could ask you all kind of weird questions. And I'm just ranting. I know I'm
awesome.
I just sit there and rant for 3 minutes and then try to phrase a question at the very end of it. So I'm sure people will be pissed when they hear it. But hey, man,
it's your show, man.
Yeah. I heard earlier. I heard it sounded like a dog underneath. Do you have a dog in the room with you, or did you? One of your dogs?
Yeah, I've got one laying down.
Was I hearing
here.
things? Is that a Malinois? Is it one of your working dogs or what?
No, that's my lab. Oh. And I have a Dutch Shepherd. She's on a bed back there, and then I have a Malinois out in the living room, and a pit bull from the shelter. Jeez. So we have 4 dogs. Don't judge; it's a bit excessive. But
I have 3, so and one of them's about 3 pounds. So yeah, but You started a thing called Spikes Consulting. Is it spikesconsulting.com or Canine at the end? What is it?
So that's my business, Spikes Consulting, and then I just started I'm trying to get the nonprofit designation from the IRS, and I've got some people helping me out. I'm good at a lot of things, but dealing with the IRS is certainly not one of them. But it's called Spikes Canine Fund, and it's spikescaninefund.org. And
we'll
it's
put a
basically...
link up. We'll get Todd to put a link up right here on the screen, Todd, right here. You see my hand?
Yeah.
Let's put some pressure on Todd, Jimmy. Okay.
Yeah, he's got it. It's basically, since I've been out, my life was saved a ton by dogs. And most of the guys that I work with could say that at some point during their careers in combat, they had the dog save their life. So obviously I have a strong attraction to the dogs because I worked with them. I lost him. Spike was my first work dog, and he was killed in Iraq in 2006. And he just left a big impact on me. He was amazing. So I named a business, and I'm going to name this nonprofit after him. But I've been working with some of the local law enforcement, and I see there's, the municipalities don't have a lot of money. And if a dog has a medical problem that's over a certain amount, the city's not going to cover it, and they lose the dog. That's probably a good dog. It's been out on the street. So there's a need there. Also, the equipment that the dogs have. I was fortunate in my crew. We had a good budget, and we could buy good stuff for our dogs. The local law enforcement people and the disaster relief people, like the search and rescue dogs, they don't have budgets at all. And basically the people who work those dogs, whether they're cops or their local search and rescue teams, they don't have a lot of money, most of them. And so they're buying what they can with what they've got to try to make sure the dog has the right stuff. It's important that the dogs have, to me, it's really important that the dogs have the best equipment available so they can survive the stuff they go through. You know what I mean? Like, it's difficult to watch these, specifically the cops who go out into these pretty rough shooting situations with the dog, and they don't have the best equipment available to help both the dog and the police succeed. And the dogs are really, he's what you call a force multiplier. The dog's worth a lot. They have superpowers. They can smell and see things and hear things way ahead of humans. So they save a lot of people that way. They just need good gear. I want to help them out. And at the end, the long-term goal is to create a kennel, build a kennel somewhere where I can take in, a lot of the dogs that we worked with, our dogs were specifically kind of aggressive bite type dogs. We used them on the capture kill missions.
Yeah.
And those dogs are hard to place when they return. You can't just give those to the Joneses across the way because the dog will go sideways and hurt the kid. So I want to make a kennel. I want to build a kennel, really, that we can bring those kind of dogs in and give them the kind of life they deserve because they earned it, man. They work hard. They do a lot. They're amazing.
Saving humans' lives, yeah, I can imagine. And I have a Malinois myself. It's a female, and I understand what you're saying, that they could go crazy. She's trained up in French rings. She can bite. She does it all. She does. She was trained up. I didn't train her. I got her from these great people I got her after she was 2 years old, and they had already competed with her and won stuff and whatever. She's a great dog. So I've seen the drive that they have. But your dog Spike, I don't know if I can. I mean, there's no specifics, but it's so weird. It's unbelievable how everything's tied together. I met your buddy the other day, served with you. I don't even want to, it's not like I can, it's a secret, but I won't say his name on here just in case anything is ever tied together with basically I'm scared of you guys, Jimmy, so I don't want to get in trouble. So he was telling me a story about Spike. He was in our training room, and I go in because he was in town giving a speech, and I was like, oh, you know Jimmy Hatch? He's like, yeah, of course. And so I emailed you, told you I saw him and everything, and he said something about a dog, and I was like, oh, you talking about Spike? Because you told me about Spike's consulting, and he's like, no, this was a different dog. He was talking about something that happened later down the road. He's like, Spike. He goes, Spike was crazy, man. And he said they were interrogating somebody. I think you were interrogating somebody or whatever. Spike was off in the corner. Two or three guys, if you guys were interrogating somebody somewhere, and Spike walked up to you guys and bit your buddy or something, bit one of you guys, not you, or bit somebody, and this guy you were interrogating instantly talked. They said, instantly, he was like, oh my God, this dog's crazy enough to bite his own dudes. I'm out, I'm done. You can have whatever, take your information. So Spike sounded like a great dog, and you guys invented a new interrogation technique.
Yeah, I remember what he's talking about, and I was in another room, and I had, the dog on a leash. And the guys that had captured a guy that were getting ready to take him out, the guy started yelling and making a big ruckus. Spike got away from me, and he just ran in and he bit one of my buddies, bit him in the back of the leg, and I'm like, oh. It was a bad move on my part, but everybody knew that Spike would cause damage after that for sure. I feel bad about that. I can't believe that he told you that. Dang it.
He told a couple of us, not just me, so I'm not giving any information out that's classified, hopefully. So I was like, man, yeah, I can understand how if you're being interrogated and you see, you're like, this guy. And I've watched Malinois bite. I can't imagine what Spike was like. To see that happen, man, that's fun. But something you got to clear up for me. The movies I see and everything, and people, I've seen pictures of it, but is it true? Do the dogs jump out of planes with you guys?
Yeah, man. We've done a little bit of that for sure, and it's I like to jump, so that's kind of I like dogs. So yeah,
strap him to you, or is he on his own?
Yeah, they're strapped to us, and you can put all your kit on and put the dog over the top of it, and they're fine, man. If you're cool, they're cool. If you're nervous, they're going to be nervous. They feel what you feel. You know what I mean? It's pretty fun.
Do you ever jump with them into the ocean, into water?
Sure, you could. You could jump anywhere. Yeah.
And then do they stay strapped to you when you get to your boat or whatever you guys are getting to?
No. You can unstrap. They can swim. They can swim better than you. Yeah.
Yeah, but man, I mean,
they can do a lot of amazing stuff.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's cool when you see that. I would love to see that in action. One of these days, I'm gonna get down, hopefully, and I know Jay said, I think at the end of May, he has that jump down there with all the wounded guys, and I'm gonna go down there. I want to go jump with them one time. I've never jumped, and so I'm thinking, if I do it, might as well do it with some Navy SEALs that have jumped into getting shot at and crazy stuff. So I don't care. It's boring. It's probably old news for you guys just to jump into a ceremonial thing.
It's awesome. I love it every time, man. I call it cleaning my filters. Seriously, it's better up there, man. You get out of the airplane, it's quiet. You don't feel pain. You're not hurting. You know what I mean? It's awesome. Can't hear people talking. You know what I mean? You're like, I can't hear you. It's awesome, man. It's a good time. I mean, it's scary the first couple times, but after a while, there's people who've taken it to a kind of a really high level. It's artistic, man. It's beautiful. And I like that kind of stuff. It's awesome, man. You'll like it. It's fun, man.
Yeah,
You'll see.
I think just the initial part of when that door opens is what's going to be my test, you know?
Yeah, for sure. That's what everybody does, you know?
I mean, it's something that I need to test myself on that. I need to do it because as I get older, I'm getting weirdly scared of heights too. So I need to knock this out. I'm getting weird. I've joked on here and different things. The older I get, man, I cry at like commercials and sad movies and weird things, like some Robert De Niro movie about his kid. It was so weird. And then I'm getting like, I'll be like on the top of an escalator, like, I'm like getting scared of heights. I've never had it. I'm like, we have 2 kids. I want to have more. I'm thinking more kids. I'm not gonna be able to go out of the house. I'm gonna be a wreck, man. So I need to get that skydiving thing knocked out soon.
Yeah, that's good, and that's a good one to come to because of you get to see the people who've been really hurt, you know, wounded people that have been really hurt, and seeing them smiling, and I mean, it's just awesome. That's a really cool event. Jay's a pretty amazing guy. I'd like to say a little bit about him, how I met him. See, I didn't know who he was. He was at a different unit than I was. And when I was in the hospital, people were talking about him because of that sign that he wrote, you know. And I'm like, I don't even know that guy, you know. So I get out. I spent a little over a month in the hospital. I came home. I guess I was probably home about a week. And, you know, my wife says, hey, man, there's a guy that's going to come over and see you. He was also wounded. I'm like, okay, cool. So it's Jay, and he brings his wife. And he walks in, and his face is all messed up. And I'm like, dude, what happened to your face? He's like, I got shot in the face. And then he started talking to me. He's like, listen, man, he had just written it down in a notebook because there's no manual for what happens when you get wounded. He's like, these are the things you need to know. These are the things that you need to take care of because when you get hurt, you can lose. Like in the SEAL teams or in the special forces, you get special pays for doing certain tasks. And if you get wounded and you can't do those tasks, then you can lose money. So there's all this, you know, paperwork stuff that you need to know, and he knew it. And he basically gave me a brief. He's like, this is what you need, this is what you need, this is what you need. And then he's like, and at the end of it, he said, listen, man, there's going to be some rough times ahead, and I'm here for you. And he gave me his phone number. And I'm like, I'm good. Sure enough, man, that stuff set in, and I was on the phone with him. You know what I mean? He's a good cat, man. And what he does is really cool.
He seems amazing. Yeah, I read his sign that he put outside his door and everything, and that's kind of I actually read it on here. And so yeah, that's just what a cool thing to do, to come over and talk to you. And that was early on when you were shortly home. So if you were in the hospital for a month and then you came home, how was that? Was that transition from how? I can't imagine the mental how hard it would be mentally to go from boom in forever fighting all the time, or I don't know, who knows how much you were actually, I assume you were involved in a ton of action, and then boom, you're hurt, you're at home. How does your brain like comprehend that? Or how do you, and your body and everything, from not being able to probably get out and be as physical as you want at the same time?
Yeah, for sure, man. It's a very abrupt change, and like when I got shot, I was screaming. I didn't handle it really well. I was the same when I got home, man. I didn't handle being wounded well. I didn't handle the guys that I was with were still overseas. I was worried about them. It was a really tough time, man. Really hard. And you know, you compound that with the pain that you're in. You feel like what am I doing? Like I've done this for so long, and that's who I am. All of a sudden, you don't know who you are. Like, who am I? You know what I mean? And it's. Then you got the drugs going through you. It's a bad deal, man. And I really did not suffer well. And I ended up having to go to the hospital for psych stuff, you know. And one night I was crazy, guns and knives. I'm going to kill myself. My wife called the police, told them who I was. Those dudes came, and they had every right to freaking you know, she got the gun and the knife away from me, but they could have tased me or beat me down. I had it coming, you know. And those dudes came up and were way calm, sat me on my porch. My wife called some of the people from my unit to come get me, and they took me to the hospital. I spent a lot of time in the hospital, and you know, I got fixed up. But those cops could have. That was awesome. That, you know what I mean? Like, that's a moment where, like, sometimes I go up to the cops in the town where I live, and I don't even know them, and I'm like, hey, man, I just want to say thanks. And they're like, what? And I'm like, I went crazy one night, and some guys came over and took care of me, and I appreciate it. And they're like, you're still crazy, you know what I mean? That was a big deal, man. And it was just, again, like I was talking about earlier, you know, just another example of good people that just come into your life, and you never hear about that stuff. You know what I mean? It was pretty amazing.
That is, because if I was a cop, I'm not gonna lie, Jimmy, and they called me, your wife called me and said you're going crazy with guns and knives and all this, guess what I would have done? I would have turned my radio off like I didn't hear it and send it to somebody else. I'm not going to your house. And if I did, I'd have like the full like barricade armor, like I'm going into a riot, and I would just shoot the taser over at you and you'd probably still fight through it. I mean,
I don't know about that.
Those guys are heroes as well for handling you, but not to make light of it at all, but do you think when you got hurt and you said you struggled through it, and the only reason I want to bring it up is because, and if you don't want to talk about something, you tell me, man. This is all your show. It's about you, but I like to hear about how you've come through everything. But to know that, I need to know, like, how bad was it, and was it like painkillers induced? Was it just memories? Was it everything combined, and then you had to get off of substances and kind of talk through things? Or what was it that you said it was rough for a while, and now you look how well you're doing? So how bad was it?
Yeah, man, it was tough. It was a combination of all the things that you mentioned, right? So it was the fact that I was out of my crew, the guys that I was close to. I was hurting, pain, and I didn't know what I was going to be now. I didn't know who I was. Washing the pain pills down with vodka, not a good call. And all those things combined, man, it works against you. I really struggled, and still do, really. I mean, it's not like, oh, hey, one day you're fixed. You know what I mean? I still struggle with, I think back, and it's difficult for me to remember the good things that I did. I remember the mistakes I made, and even the night I got shot, like, if I'd have just done this or been a little quicker, most of the time I know that that's just not the way it is. In a gunfight, everybody gets a vote. You know what I mean? If you got a gun, you're voting, So there's a lot of rolling the dice. I mean, you try to stack the deck, you train hard, you work hard, you're with the best people. But even under those circumstances, those guys get a vote. So I can remember that most of the time. But sometimes I think about the dog that got killed, and I think about putting my buddies in danger. Those guys had to fly that helicopter back in there and get me, and it was a shit show, man. It was crazy. And all of the people over the years who've helped me, sometimes I'm like, man, you're just a pain in the ass, But reality is we all go through stuff. And I think one of the great things is because of the way I was treated by my buddies, by my family, by my unit, by the military in general, and by complete strangers, you can't be pessimistic. You can't say, we suck or this sucks. I'm here because of that. One of the funny stories is one of the medics that came to save me he's actually a SEAL, but he also had some good medical skills. When I went crazy, I was in the Naval Hospital for a while, and then they found another hospital to send me to, and I had to fly to that hospital. And that guy who had saved my ass in Afghanistan, he got on that plane with me and took me to that hospital, and I was sitting there, and he was sitting there with me, and I was in like the intake facility, mm-hmm. And I was looking at him, and I said, dude, I'm not going in here, man. I'm going to run away. And he's like, first of all, you can't really run. He's like, and secondly, you need to do this for yourself and your family. So when that guy says something like that to you, like he looks you in the eye, he saved your life once, he looks you in the eye and says, hey man, you got to do this. What do you say to that? I'm like, I'm on it. I'm going to do it. You know what I mean? That's the kind of stuff that you can't, like, nobody wins a medal for that. Mm-hmm. I mean, nobody's going to be on 60 Minutes talking about that. You know what I'm saying? It's amazing. And that same guy, I'm not the only person he's done that for. And I could throw a freaking bag of ping pong balls in the room and they would all hit somebody who's done something amazing like that. It's hard to be down when people have come to your aid like that. You know what I mean? That's the stuff that I kind of remember.
That should be, I mean, that's what is a great thing to point to. And do you think a guy like that, yeah, you're right. A guy like that, that guy doesn't get to go to the White House when Bergdahl's parents are there. That's all. Yeah, come on. But That guy should. But the great thing, I would guess, I'm just going to have a hunch here that guy wouldn't even want recognition for something like that. Just exactly. A hunch.
You know what he said to me one time? Because I'm into telling stories. You know, I think it's cool, and
you're good at it, man. You're passionate. I love it. I think people will love hearing you talk.
It's important, I think, that Americans kind of know some of this stuff. Some of it nobody needs to know. But that guy said to me, this guy who saved my ass twice, he said, Jimmy, look, man, most people don't deserve to know what we did. They didn't go through the training. They didn't go through the work. They didn't put themselves at risk. They shouldn't get the entertainment value out of it. It's bullshit. He said that to me. It's hard to argue with that, you know. My argument is I believe people need some in-your-face kind of stuff. They need to know the deal, whether or not they want to believe it. All that stuff's made up. You know, it's not true. People suffer and hurt. People die fighting, and people need to know about it. And not just in a commercial on television asking them to give money, but like see somebody and interchange conversation like this, you know? I think that's important.
I think it's important as someone that has obviously no military background and no real idea of whatever, to see the real side of, to see all of it though. Like it goes back to this whole, I mean, I have so many different ideas on how we should be presented information as Americans, but like the whole Pat Tillman situation, I'm sure you know a little bit about that. There's a great documentary on that. You know, Pat Tillman, he went over and friendly fire, and they were trying to cover up all this stuff, and his family was so awesome throughout all of it, and they uncovered the fact that it was friendly fire that got him. But they're thinking, like, his brother was saying they were putting Pat up, and Pat's like one of my biggest heroes. I talked to Jake Plummer on here as quarterback, and Jake was awesome. Jake was one of his good friends. His brothers and them were saying, "Why you guys are putting these statues up of Pat running and yelling like a warrior, and you know, with his helmet off?" And they're like, "How about we have a statue of Pat just hanging out, drinking a beer with his buddies, and having a positive influence on everyone around him? Because like that's like what Pat was." They said like, "Yeah, he was this warrior and this badass dude, but you need to like show everything. We can't just have mythical figures of everything, of ideas of what it is, because it's real." And look at your story. I think is amazing because you're willing, you're open to tell it like how. Yeah, there's things happens, man. There's some collateral damage when you're out there doing what you do, and so I respect you for letting people know that. Yeah, hey, we're fighting through it, and it's true. You know, you say there's none of us are ever completely through it, and something that you've seen and done and everything. It's like I don't know what I'm trying to even get at, but I'm just trying to think. I just think that we need to see the real side of everything, and I think people need to be real and be authentic with it. And you can't just sit there and we can't just sit there and listen to the stories of oh, this guy ran in and threw 16 guys on his back and carried him out through a wall of gunfire, and somehow every bullet missed him and he caught 3 of them in his teeth. You know, like, come on, man. Like, I know you guys are all heroes and you guys have done stuff like that, but there's also bad things that happen, and you know, you see people die, and you take a round of the leg, and it, you know, it alters your whole path. And like you said, you had to fight through. So I respect for what you're doing, but I would ask, basically after my whole diatribe there, basically just trying to say, do you think we need to be presented stuff in a little more, I don't know, without like the kid gloves maybe is what I'm getting at. Like, we don't need to be spoon-fed stuff. Like, I think if we can watch these stupid ISIS turds cut guys' heads off, shouldn't you respect people enough to tell them what really happens?
Yeah, I think with the Pat Tillman case in particular, I do know quite a bit about that, and obviously I wasn't there, but I think what happened with that, I don't know that people actually went out of their way to try to lie or anything. I think people didn't want his family to think that happened, and they didn't want Americans to think that friendly fire happens, and it sure as hell does, you know what I mean? But I think it is exactly like you mentioned. We put ISIS out here, and we have to create these kind of characters, and they help us because they provide us with video of brutal things going on, and that kind of stuff. I think we have to remember that the media is a business, And if the appetite is for Kim Kardashian on the beach, then that's what they're going to play. You know what I mean? And if there's an appetite for stories, generally the stories that are going to sell aren't going to be the ones of Jimmy Hatch sitting on his porch with the cops who should have tased him for being crazy. Those are people don't really want to hear about that.
I don't know, Jimmy. I actually want to hear more about that one. But that's just me. I'm just telling you.
Speaking, people don't want to hear about that kind of stuff because it's unsettling. You know what I mean? And I understand that. It's not easy to. It's difficult for me to think that people really want to. It's hard. You know what I mean? That's hard stuff, and it's expensive, man. Meaning it hurts people. It affects their whole families. You know what I mean? Like when a person gets wounded, when a woman or a man gets wounded, and they come home, it changes everything in the lives of all the people that are close to them. Changes it dramatically. That's a big deal, man. And having a yellow sticker on your car, that's cool. I get it. The thing was probably made in China. You know what I mean? It doesn't let you off the hook. People are responsible. You know what I'm saying? Everybody made a choice to say, hey, we're gonna send people to go kill these guys. But people don't want to hear that. They want to see Kim Kardashian. You know what I mean?
You're right. The good thing is, I think hopefully it's changing a bit with internet and whatever. And like there's less and less need for like network TV. I think, and as we go, who knows where it's going to turn to? But they'll just somehow find a way to monetize more of the internet and what they're doing. But your story you came through when you say Jay Redmond came out and to let you know this is what you got to do. This is boom, 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 boom. Do you think did he tell you anything? The thing that I would clicked in my mind was you're operating at such a high level your whole life, like the best of the best, the tip of the spear, and you're out there in these super high stressful situations. Gunfights all the time, combat. You're seeing it hand to hand, and then all of a sudden, boom! It dead stops one day. Is that part of the reason why you still skydive? Is there something that can give you that same high, that same adrenaline rush? Because that's the thing that I talk about and I worry about when football is over. Like I get to go run into people every day and it's awesome. I love it. But yeah, it comes to an end and I'm always preparing for that. But what is it is there something that can get, I don't know, not take the place of, but can give you a little bit of an edge?
Yeah, I tell you what, man. I can send you to the doctors that help me because what it comes down to, man, seriously, and you're going to run into that, I'm certain, when you're done. For me, it's this simple. In combat and working with the people that I worked with, there's a clean pocket of time. And I can imagine, I can't transport myself to what it's like to be lined up in your position on the football field, but there's a moment, when the ball snaps and you figured it out and there's nothing else in the world but that. It's the same way in combat. It's gunfight, man. It's what I call a clean pocket of time. And the obligation after that is for you to take care of your family and to take care of yourself. You got to find other ways to find that clean pocket of time. And for me, that's jumping. I'm a CrossFit guy. I'm old and fat, and the young guys, I got this weird, crazy leg, and but when I'm hurting in the gym, that's a clean pocket of time. I like that. Same thing in the sky. The dogs are, that's a clean pocket too. So, they had to tell me, look, dude, you got to figure that out. I can't tell you what to do with your life, but you're gonna have to figure out what it is that you like to do, and that's kind of what I'm doing. And the thing that I found that really helps me, it's a clean pocket of time too, most of the time, is. I go out and talk to veterans groups, and I go to talk to other military people around. And, suicide's a big problem, man. And, I was really fortunate because I had good people that stepped in. And I think if I can get up there, hey, I was a Navy SEAL, went through all this training, and I suffered, and I needed to get help, I think that sometimes can help people. And that's pretty cool, too. And it's not the big nightly news story, but I'll have people get in touch with me after and say, hey man, I was on the edge and now I'm getting help, and that stuff is awesome. You know what I mean? That's really cool too. I get a little I get a feeling like what I went through was worth something. You know what I mean? If I can convey it in a good way and help somebody out. One thing I learned too in all these psych situations is that I thought that the military stuff just was so specific and special, but it's not, man. People go through things in their lives that are brutal and hard and violent, and a lot of people have a lot of heavy duty issues too. You know what I mean? So, like, anybody is eligible to be somebody that needs help, and then anybody's eligible to be someone who can help somebody who needs help. And I think if we can kind of, you're either on one side of the line or the other. If we can work that out and help each other, or ask for help when we need help, or see that, hey, that dude needs some help, but he's not going to ask. Like my buddy saying, hey, dude, you're going to the mental hospital and you can't run anyway, so just go on in there and take care of yourself. This is what you got to do. That kind of stuff. That's cool. Sorry, Matt. I kind of went off there on my little rant, but the clean pocket of time is something that you're going to have to find.
I'm gonna write that down, man. I never heard of it like that. Clean pocket of time. It makes sense. It really does. But don't ever. You don't apologize. I've been doing that the whole time. I can't. I have so many questions that I want to ask you that I'm just ramble on with my stupid views. But I don't know if guys have come to you yet and told you if it would admit it or not, but I'm sure your story has saved guys' lives, especially military guys, that when you go tell your story and you're like, hey, because there's all kind of guys with issues, not only military, all over, the U.S., that are scared to either say something or they feel like they're fighting it alone, and, oh man, why does nobody else have these issues? Everyone just seems to be handling everything great. And if a guy like you came in and told your story and said, hey man, guess what? It's not all champagne and roses. Things happen. You go through it. We have to fight through some stuff. I would think a guy like, there's many people that you probably never hear from half of them, but they'd be like, hey man, this dude was the the king of the jungle for a while, and then all of a sudden he had issues, and he has some similar thoughts he told me he had thoughts that I'm having, and look at him, look how he came through it. I guarantee you have you seen that firsthand yet?
Yeah. What was really cool was one night, I told you when I was a kid I read war books about Vietnam and Korea and World War II. One night I gave a speech, and it was for a charity event where people who were donating to a couple of different veterans charities. And I got done with my speech, and people always come up after, I call it the after party. And because of the way I talk, I'm wide open, and you can say whatever to me because I've been there, and so people come up and say things. This guy was waiting back. He's a pretty big dude, and he came up and he gave me a hug, and he started sobbing. And he said into my ear, he's like, they just don't understand, man. So he calmed down. We started talking. He was a Ranger in Vietnam, man, and that's pretty moving when a young guy like me who read about dudes like that, that's. I
think that's your calling.
That's awesome.
I think that's your post military calling, in just because it's true. You guys are on a pedestal. You should be. But I think it's almost like people can't relate to things they read in the books because they think, well, this guy's with how like you think and how your brain works and how in the heat of the battle you're running towards the enemy. All of us are thinking, man, I'm scared to death if I'm in a paintball game. So we can't relate to that. And so when a guy like you actually will come down to our level and say, well, yeah, we all have issues. What do you mean? Yeah, like we all are fighting different things. I think that your story is super inspirational in it. And I think it's inspirational, obviously, because of what you've accomplished and what you've done for our country and yourself and everybody around you, but for what you've come through after that, and I know everything's a daily battle and we're all fighting the good fight. We all have issues, but when someone is honest enough, and I would say secure enough with themselves to actually let people know that things are wrong, it's cool to see, especially a guy like a stature like yours. And that's something that I hope is one decent thing coming from all this information everywhere in social media and all this, that people will be like, you know what, yeah, who cares? I guarantee you Brad Pitt has issues. Guess he's a handsome devil, but he's got some issues too. He's fighting some demons, and if we heard him, it would make us like, yeah, all right. It would help some people out, I think. So I think that's what you're calling. I know you're trying to move into that way a little bit, and you're thinking about doing some talks and trying to put something together. Are you ever planning on writing a book or doing anything like that?
I've had people approach me about that, and it seems to be a popular thing these days, dudes writing books,
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know that a book can convey things. I guess I'm open to that kind of stuff, but I think the book stuff's kind of worn out, man. I think there's opportunities out there. I think there's something to be said for actually talking to people, standing up in front of them, or doing something like this, where people can just sit back in the comfort of their home and look at and think about what we're saying and not really have to worry about what anybody else is thinking. I don't know, there's something good about that, I definitely like telling the story for two reasons. One, I think it can help people, but more importantly, it's kind of selfish, man. The more I talk about that stuff, the less it stings. When I talk about the dog getting killed and my buddies having to risk their lives, and that kind of stuff is heavy still. It always will be, you know what I mean? But I think the only way I can really pay those guys back is by helping, just paying that stuff forward. It's a kind of an old phrase now. It's overused, but
Pay it forward. Woody Hayes used to say that. Coach Tressel at Ohio State, when I was there, used to tell us that. He would always say, pay it forward. And when I was, 18 years old, I didn't know. I didn't know what it meant, really. As I get older, I start to figure it out. That's for sure. I start to understand that that's something that that we should do. But I'm looking forward to seeing where you take it. I know you've been speaking to some military, and you were emailing me telling me you went and spoke to a Navy, a ship or something, where a guy had committed suicide on their ship. And so when you do that, are you just sharing your journey of what you went through?
Yeah, I do a little bit, and I think where I make my money though is in the Q&A period, because that's kind of like off the cuff.
Yeah, man, you kill it off. Don't let me be in the audience for one of your Q&As.
But there's always the video game kids, right? That are like, dude, how many people have you killed?
Oh, God.
And you're like, come on, you know what I mean? Like, think about it. But they're kids, and it's probably something I would have asked back then. And then there are people who you can see it in a man that they're interested. They caught something that I said, and they want to explore. In a public forum like that, it's kind of hard to say, hey, I'm really having trouble, but they'll use metaphors, and those kind of things are awesome, man. I definitely dig it, and I think that interaction is cool. I just don't know how. Yeah, I don't know how big of a group. I mean, I've spoken in front of a couple hundred people here and there, but yeah, I'm not one of those like the Sunday morning evangelist dudes that can stand in those arenas and talk. You know what I mean? I haven't had that pleasure yet, but I think what I have to say is valid, and it's stuff that other people have said to me while I was on this little journey.
Journey, as I call it, to make it sound
ridiculous.
But yeah, I mean, to minimize what the craziness that your life has been, and you're still so young. So that's cool. But I think I think what if a team or a company would bring you in to speak, even if it was, I would, man, just have someone like run it, or have someone moderate it for you. I know this is what's amazing. You know what I'm getting at, actually. I was introduced to you through my dad, Pistol Keith Hawk. I don't know if he's told you his name is Pistol, not Keith. We called him Pistol forever. But I was introduced to you through him, and he kind of gives speeches, but he gives stupid, boring business speeches. You don't want to listen to his ones. He has great format, and we always tell him, yeah, great. I know you're really good at what you do. I'm just not going to sit through one of them. So he won't be offended, but he's great. I've done a few talks with him where he'll like moderate it and kind of set it up and point questions towards me, and then we go back and forth like his weird business world, and then I relate it to football and how they tie together. So yeah, I think you guys should do some of that stuff, man. Try one out with him, and then you can just strike out on your own, or get a good moderator.
I like that idea, man. I think that would be cool, and I'd like to take care of my family. I'm not going to lie to you. That kind of stuff pays a little bit better than what I make. So I'm keen on that, and that's part of the reason too. Like, I think that's another reason why so many books have been written, and I think it's cool to be able to translate your experiences over in a way that doesn't put anybody else in danger. Meaning, you're not giving away any secrets or talking about tactics or anything. I think it's cool to be able to capitalize on that, and I sure as heck would like to do that. It would be cool.
And I know my dad's gonna watch this, because he actually is a crazy fan of you. So when I Pistol, don't be offended that I said get a good moderator. He's great at what he does. I understand. I'm just too immature to understand and listen to his business topics. But yeah, he's great at what he does. Pistol, don't get mad. He won't be offended. We have a good relationship. And what's funny when we end it, Jimmy, if you listen back, I'll send you. We have a little 15-second clip. There's a guy, a voiceover that comes on and tells you like how to share this and go to iTunes, which we're going to be on, and it's Pistol. And his weird high-pitched DJ voice from college when he was a radio DJ, and I'm going to give away some classified information that he went by JT Hawkins when he was in college as his DJ name. So I'm trying to bring JT back.
He had a stage name.
That's awesome. It's a stage name, JT Hawkins, because Keith Hawk, he felt like he needed more syllables in there. So J.T. Hawkins, Ohio University Bobcats, class of 1937 probably. No, I don't know. But I'm going to start to wrap it up. And even though I say that every time, then I always go much longer with people. But I feel bad I've taken a lot of your time. But I wanted you to see, just real quick, not real quick, however long you would like to spend on or expound. Could use a big word, but I know you skydive with Gabby Giffords, and you've close with her and her husband and everything. How did that come about?
So I was in Afghanistan, I think it was 2008, and she was part of a congressional delegation that came to the base that we were at, and they came to where we were, our little tent city, and we gave them a little brief on kind of what we were doing, and they kind of introduced themselves and said where they were from, and I'd spend a lot of time out in Arizona skydiving, both for work and for fun. And the place where we do our training out there, the drop zone where we jump, is basically in her district. So I said, "Hey, man, you should come do a jump with us sometime." She's like, "Okay, I will." And she handed me her card, and I'm like, "Yeah, right. I'll email this, and I'll never hear anything." But sure enough, man, we got home from that deployment. We were out there doing a training thing. I emailed her. I said, "Hey, Gabby, we're going to be training through these days." And she said, "I can come. I'll do it on a Saturday morning." And I'm like, "Are you kidding me?" So we met for breakfast. I'm thinking she's going to have this posse, with her. She comes in. She's wearing jeans and a sweatshirt. And she's like, "Okay, let's, we eat breakfast." She's super nice and this diminutive, quiet person. And we get in the car and drive up to the airport. And she's asking me and the friend of mine that's in the car what we think about different political things, and it was pretty funny. We get to the airport. I put the harness on her. I give her a brief. We go up in the airplane. She's totally chill. I mean, like totally chill. So I strap her in on the airplane. We walk to the edge of the ramp, and I'm like, generally, we're jumping out of a big military plane, so the door is huge. Generally, people are pretty uptight at this point. She's smiling, dude. She's like looking around.
Is this her first time jumping too?
Yeah. So we jump out of the plane. We do a backflip. Jeez. And another guy was doing some video, and in the video you can see her. She's totally smiling the whole time. It was awesome. So we fall. We get down to where we're going to pull the parachute out, slow our fall rate so we don't run into the ground, and we open the parachute up, and she's like, "This is so beautiful," and it is. It's really cool. You'll see when you come out. So we land, and I'm like, "So you're gonna go? What are you gonna do for the rest of the day?" She's like, "I got to go interview prospective military academy students from my district. So to go to like the Naval Academy or West Point, they have to be a congressperson has to submit their name." So she was going to interview all these kids. So she worked, like we were up early working. It's on a Saturday, dude. She worked her butt off. So when I got hurt a little while after that, and she was in D.C. and she came up and hung out with me and my wife and some of the dudes that were hanging out with me in the hospital. And it was really cool to talk to her. That was a really different environment because as a congressperson, she had people in her district that were military reservists that were going through stuff. And I think it was really cool for her to be able to see that wounded, the floor of the hospital that I was on. There were a lot of people up there that were really hurt. I think that was a really cool experience for her. Anyway, so she came to see me. It was really cool. We stayed in touch, email. And then January 2011, I'm sitting at home on my couch, my legs all still, healing up, and had a bunch of surgeries. Had like 17 surgeries on my leg. And I'm watching the news, and my phone starts blowing up, and my buddies that live out in Arizona were like, Jimmy, this is bad, dude. And just as the news comes on, and like we were talking about earlier, the crazy kid, right? This kid, she's at this meeting at a freaking grocery store where she's having her constituents come talk to her. And the kid just clacks one off in her head, dude, from, like 5 feet away. AJ, I've shot a lot of people in the head, and none of them lived. You know what I mean?
Gosh.
And she is like, it's insane. Anyway, so a short while after that, she got moved down to a hospital in Houston, and her husband asked me and a buddy of mine who was a retired SEAL, and he has a place out in Tucson called the Trident. It's a little tavern, it's pretty awesome. And we both flew down there to Houston to see her. And so she has a person there that meets us at the hospital, and we've been through some hard stuff, so we've seen some shocking things. But this woman's like, listen, she does not look like she used to look, and these are the things that she can do well, and the things that she can't. She may not remember you. So we go up the stairs, and as soon as we get to where her room is, there's a door, sign on the door written by her husband, who's, the space shuttle astronaut. He's like, look Gabby in the eye, talk to her like you would talk to her anyway. She understands what you're saying. So that I have that, and then we walk in the room, and she totally remembers me. Hey, she's waving with her left arm. She can't move her right arm. They've got half of her skull cut out because her brain is swelling. So when she's in bed, she doesn't have to take any precautions. But as soon as she gets up, they put a freaking bike helmet on her, because if she fell down, which was highly probable based on her paralysis, she would kill her. So I spent the day with her and watching her work. And I wish that people say, hey, who's your hero? I say Gabby. I mean, it's just amazing to me. I got shot in the leg, and I didn't suffer well at all. She got shot in the freaking face, man. In the face. And she's positive and tries to bring people up, and it's amazing, man. It's amazing.
And she seems like it's like she gets better and better, too, as time goes. Didn't you jump with her even in 2014 again?
Yeah, well, we were going to do it again, but I can't really, because of the way my leg is, I didn't feel really good about strapping her to me and going for a jump, so I asked a friend of mine who's done a lot of tandem jumps and a lot of people that have disabilities if he'd do it. So he took her, and I just jumped with her. I had some friends that were professional world champ skydivers go with us, just so that I knew we had a solid crew, Mm-hmm. And that buddy of mine from Tucson who has that bar, he went with us too. And it was, it was awesome. It was really cool. She's a rock star, man. They had the crew there from the Today Show. It was kind of a media thing, and she's the same. She just can't talk like you and I are talking. Yeah. She understands, and she doesn't get wrapped around the axle over that kind of stuff. She's just awesome. Maybe someday you'll get a chance to meet her. I think just seeing the way she rolls through life she's a freaking commando at life, dude. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, she's full on all the time. It's awesome.
I love it. I love that. I mean, we all knew she was pretty special just from what she came through, but to hear all that's crazy, man. I know I read something that you said. I think they must have asked you or whoever, the Today Show or whatever, and you said she was the most least nervous person in that plane or something before they jumped out. I think the first time we went, maybe.
Yeah, for sure. She's calm, man. Like, and I said, aren't you worried? Aren't you scared? She's like, if you guys do it, I can do it.
See, people like that, man, it's like they vibrate at a different frequency than totally humans. It's weird. And it seems like you've come across, I mean, you are one of those guys, and then you've come across other guys like that are attracted to you, it seems like, through a lot of the trials that you've gone through and a lot of the stuff that you've had to see and deal with. And so, whatever reason, I don't know, maybe you got all these guys that are all these people that are like, they're coming into your inner circle, and you're going to start like a whole new world order, right? Isn't that a whole conspiracy going on anyway that's going on?
Yeah, I don't know. What's the Illuminati?
Who knows? Yeah, run Jay-Z and like whoever. They name like athletes and rappers that are running it. I'm like, yeah, our athletes. We got locked out. The NFL got locked out of the NFL season. We missed 0 checks, and we still had guys taking loans out for 40% interest rates. So I don't think we're in the Illuminati. That was happening.
Well, you know, along the lines of what you're saying, when you say, yeah, you know, you've got this elite, you know, I just think whenever you say something like that, it's like me saying, dude, you're the best linebacker, because you're immediately thinking, okay, what are the other linebackers going to say? Like, what?
I get you.
So I'm thinking about my buddies going, yeah, oh yeah.
I hear you.
You know?
Well, yeah, I mean, you know how people...
Yeah.
At least me, being a military fanboy like I always am, I say I am. I mean, I think you guys don't get the respect you should. I mean, you obviously get huge respect, but we don't really people don't really sit down and actually think about how it does. Like you said, you're wounded. Like it's not just me, man. It's not just me. It affects everybody down the line, and that's true. And everyone's life has that in some way. You know, just like anything. It's a much smaller scale and not nearly as big a deal, but I mean, it's like a player getting hurt. Like, it's not just him. Then all of a sudden, if a guy gets hurt, he's on the injured reserve. And again, disclaimer: I'm not comparing getting hurt to getting shot in the leg, but he's at home all of a sudden. Him and his wife are bickering. Like, she's not used to him being home he's usually gone 12 hours a day. So it's everyone. Yeah, they all have like weird things, and the guy doesn't have like that. He's not running his skull into other guys, you know. So it's like all can. I think we can all relate to. Everyone has similar issues. Some are a lot bigger than others. Obviously, when yours are life and death things, it's the top of the heap. But we can all at least, I think, take something from it. That's why I think your story is awesome, man. It's a cool, I don't know, weirdly crazy inspirational. I think because it's different than other guys too. You know, I don't know, man. You know. Like
I think maybe it's maybe a little arrogance on my part that I really think that people do want to hear what I have to say, but I'm going to run it until
definitely run it. No, you need to get out there. I think you should push you out there and push the limits and say, what I mean, you got everyone. A lot of you guys, not you guys, a lot of military guys are writing books, and the market might be kind of saturated, but I think you have a little different story than other people. You all have your own paths you took to where you are, but yours is I don't know, yours just feels different. I've talked to a lot of different guys, and I don't know, it's cool that you I think have this, and not cool and not glorifying stuff, but yeah, like you said, you're just open, I'm on my porch with a gun and knife, going crazy. Like, no one would say that. No one would. Why would you? Don't have to admit that to us, you know. Like, why do it?
I think because in the end, man, it's look, here's the bottom line for me with this, and these guys that saved my life. When people risk their life for you, you are then obligated to do a good job with your life. And so if I can tell people that I lost my mind, I'm running around with a Glock and a freaking knife and screaming, and I'm going to kill myself. And we all know that's just a big show, and I was crying for help. You know, that's because I definitely know how to use a gun. You know what I mean? So it's kind of pathetic. But I can't change. Just like I can't change the gunfight, the dog getting killed, my buddies risking their lives. But I'm obligated, man. And I think if I can help, a couple people, or if I can make people laugh and think about maybe put their own lives in perspective, that's cool.
Yeah, I think you can put it in perspective. I want to
make some money, dude. I want to make some money.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting at. No, you definitely can make. Man, you can make a killing. Yeah. I'm sorry to keep saying that, but yeah, yeah. Go talk to some, but don't talk like. Yeah, the good thing about you though, you're not gonna. You appeal to any audience, I think, but the best is like people that want to hear something real, not some uptight corpo idiots, nerds. Even they will really dig your story though. Maybe even more than the guys that think they're the I don't know, man, like the top Wall Street king arrogant dudes. Maybe even, I don't know, who knows. And no matter where you tell your story, it's going to be inspirational. People are going to love it, and guess what? You're going to make some cash. So hopefully this thing sets you on your way for that, because you deserve to make a bunch of cash from it. But a thing I didn't get to write down, but I will, in that I'm pretty sure I will never hear it again from anybody else. You said like 10 minutes ago, you said, AJ, I've shot a lot of people in the head, and all of them died. I'm laughing at it, but I mean, if that's not the line of the day, that's unbelievable, man. I was like, makes sense. How does Gabby come through that, man? What a fight! What a trooper, man!
And the guy with the pistol, right? I mean, like right here, the bullet. I mean, like,
was he like? How far was he from her?
Wow, maybe 5 feet. And he walked right up to her.
He was just a kid that went. Did he have any issue with her? Or was he just crazy completely?
Yeah, he was crazy, but he'd had, like, I think he had some previous issues. I think they wrote a book recently, kind of trying to support their, Mark and Gabby. They have a political action committee called Americans for Responsible Solutions. It's about gun stuff, and I'm a big believer in guns too. But I believe them. I believe in what they're doing. At any rate, in that book, they describe minute by minute the whole scenario with Jared Loeffner, the kid who shot her, and how things went down. Like, because it was on tape, because the store had videotapes there, and so they. It's pretty amazing. That kid had a 33 round magazine and a Glock, and he emptied that in 15 seconds and killed 6 people and wounded, I can't remember how many other. I mean, look, I believe that you should be able to protect yourself, but I don't know. Like, we just had a cop recently killed and an innocent kid who was sitting outside a church by a dude who went sideways with an AK. This guy was a citizen of the United States. He had an AK-47 with a 72-round box of bullets attached to it, right? So that's like Ramadi.
Yeah.
That isn't America. You know what I mean? Like, why does anybody need that? I think hopefully there'll be some change in that. I mean, a lot of people getting hurt. People should have the right to have guns, just not crazy people who want to kill people and get their name in the paper,
Yeah, just check into it. How about we just do a little bit of background on them?
Right. You got to take a driver's test, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, hey, we need to retake the driver's test at like 65 as well, too. We need to get some of them off the road. I'm telling you. That's killing me. That's another day. All right, well, I'm gonna let you go finally. Really appreciate you, man. I'm sure you got to take a leak. I'm sure your back hurts, your leg hurts, but awesome, man. So happy you came on. So happy for you. You're doing well. You're gonna make a bunch of cash with your inspiring story coming up. However, whatever you decide to go forward with it, I promise I'll help pump you up. Whatever. Do whatever I can to help you, because you have helped so many people in your story. But I really appreciate it, man. I love your story. I could talk to you forever. I have so many stupid questions I'll ask you, but that's why I'm gonna have you on here later on, and we'll talk about when you're standing up in a suit and tie, or maybe a bow tie, big like the White House, speaking to speaking like 4,000 people on a Sunday afternoon in an arena.
Yeah, dude, I don't know. We'll see. Hey, let me say something, though, that it's important. Like, this is another opportunity where somebody, pretty much a complete stranger, is kind of hooking me up. You have this platform because you've busted your ass and you're pretty good at what you do, and you're letting me run my mouth here, and I really appreciate it. I think it's pretty cool of you to do that. You know what I mean? You're a pretty busy guy this time of year, and you got some stuff going on. And I look at your arm when you reach up and you're bruised up and beat up.
Oh, yeah, it's
you've been doing it 9 years, man. That's no joke. I appreciate you taking the time to let me run my mouth and for creating a platform for me to do it. Thank you.
Hey, no problem, man. I'm like I said, I rambled the whole time, but I hope people heard your story and heard how real you are. I think they definitely will, and people will respond very positively. I know you're helping people every day, but you've definitely helped me, and I'm a huge fan. My dad is obviously a monster fan as well. I'm going to play his voicemail for you someday after he talked to you on the phone the first time. It was great. I'll play it for you at some point, and he'll be embarrassed. But yeah, it was great. So yeah, you're an inspiration. Love it, man. Thank you very much. Appreciate it, and we will talk to you soon.
Thanks, man.
Thank you for joining in. Please visit thehawkcast.com, where you can discover the next guest, get a little more information about why this exists, watch past episodes, or link over to iTunes. And tell some friends too, so we can all hear more great stories together.